In a small, quiet town, there lived a man named Elias. He was known for his wisdom, his ability to see through the layers of human nature, and his profound insight into life. People came from near and far to seek his advice. His advice was never wrong. It always made sense, and yet, no one ever followed it. Elias was a man of deep understanding. He was raised in a home of faith, shaped by teachings that told him life was more than what was seen. His heart was burdened with knowledge, not just knowledge of the world, but of the things unseen, of the spiritual truths that governed reality. He was intuitive, seeing people's fears, desires, and motives as if they were written in the air around them. Yet, despite his wisdom, he lived in isolation, quietly observing the lives of others, offering counsel that was never acted upon. Throughout his life, Elias believed that the world was filled with distractions, human desires, ambitions, and fears that kept people from seeing the truth. He carried a strange, cryptic certainty within him that the answer to all human suffering was simplicity, truth, and self-awareness. But the more he tried to share these answers, the less people listened. They heard his words, but they never heard his heart. The wisdom he gave seemed to bounce off, unreceived, misunderstood, or ignored. Elias would walk through the town square every morning, where the townspeople would rush past him. He saw their pain, their struggles, their internal battles, but he was invisible to them. One day, a young man named Daniel, newly arrived in the town, sat down next to Elias on a park bench. Daniel was searching for meaning, lost in the weight of his own questions about life, faith, and purpose. His eyes were tired, his soul weary from seeking answers in all the wrong places. Daniel turned to Elias and said, "Everyone says you know everything. You have the answers. They call you wise. But I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm searching for something real, something I can hold on to." Elias looked at him, and for the first time in a long time, someone had asked. His heart fluttered with the rare sensation of being seen. He spoke gently, "The answers are within you, my friend. They always have been, but they are not what you expect. What you seek, you will not find in books, in people, or in wealth. You must find it in stillness, in silence." Daniel, perplexed but intrigued, continued to meet Elias every day. They spoke of many things: love, faith, suffering, hope. But each time, Elias' words seemed to fall on deaf ears. Daniel would listen, but he would always walk away dissatisfied, searching elsewhere for what he could not find in Elias. Days turned into weeks, and Elias, growing more desperate, began to question his own purpose. Was he simply a vessel of wisdom that no one wanted to drink from, or was he something more? Perhaps he was meant to show people that their suffering came not from their circumstances, but from their refusal to see the truth that lay within their own hearts. As time passed, Elias began to notice a strange phenomenon. Though people didn't follow his advice, their lives began to change in subtle ways. Decisions they made, actions they took, words they said. Even Daniel, who continued to question and seek elsewhere, was unknowingly living out pieces of the advice Elias had given him. Elias' words, though dismissed at first, had planted seeds in their minds and hearts, which began to grow in their own time. One night, Elias had a vision, an experience that was neither dream nor reality. He saw a great, radiant light and a figure standing in it. The figure spoke, but not in words. It was a knowing, a presence that filled the space around him. "You have not been ignored, Elias," the voice said. "You are not here to save them. You are here to remind them of what they already know. Your words, like seeds, will grow, and when the time is right, they will bear fruit." Elias awoke, shaken to his core. He understood now. He wasn't meant to change the world with force, with loud proclamations, or with immediate results. He was simply a messenger, a reminder of the deeper truths that lived in the hearts of all. But this truth, this divine knowledge, could only be revealed when the soul was ready to see it. His role was not to give answers, but to point people back to the place within them where they could discover the truth for themselves. Months later, Elias sat once again on the park bench, watching the sun set over the town. Daniel approached him, a quiet look of understanding in his eyes. "You were right," he said. his voice calm but filled with wonder. "I found what I was looking for, but it wasn't where I thought it would be. It was inside me all along. And somehow, your words were always there, even when I didn't realize it." Elias smiled, but there was no triumph in his smile. There was only peace. Sometimes, we must wander far from the truth to recognize it. It isn't always about finding the right answer. It's about realizing that we already know the answer, buried deep inside us. In the end, Elias understood that the truth was not something that could be forced upon others, no matter how right it seemed. Wisdom, he realized, was not about knowing the answers. It was about knowing that the answers could only be discovered in one's own time, in one's own way. His role was simply to sow the seeds of truth and wait, for he knew that in the fullness of time, the truth would awaken within them, just as it had awakened within him. The story ended with Elias walking alone into the horizon. Content. The world did not listen to him, but that was never his burden to carry. He had done his part, and now it was up to the people to listen when the time came. The answers, after all, were always theirs to find, and when they did, they would see that he had been walking beside them all along, waiting patiently in the silence.